problems. This is the problem section, right? Problems only come from promises. So somehow Buddha Dharma for people like us is something new. It's something that appeared really only in our generation in this world. And we're all ready to change it because we're so experienced. There's a big problem. Buddhism has a 2,000, almost 600-year history of going along, and things have been tested and tried. And yes, they have changed. And yes, the Buddha's teaching is not static. That's an important aspect of the Buddha's teaching. It is vast. And not only that, it's beyond vast. So what does that have to do with us? We have some idea of what nirvana is, maybe. We heard about it, we read about it, whatever it is. We have some idea of what enlightenment is. We meet a teacher, then our idea we place on them. Dummy. Right away, the only thing that can come from that is disappointment. Because whatever our idea of enlightenment is, whatever our idea of nirvana is, whatever that is, isn't that. That's the point of the Dharma. Dharma is spiritual truth. It's not what we want to hear. It's not to justify our little personal idiosyncrasies, have an excuse for this, that, or the other. It's to actually go to the bare bones of the truth. That is Dharma's promise, that it does that. What does that require? Faith. What is faith? Believing in Buddha. What is believing in Buddha? That's putting into practice what the Buddha taught. There is no faith. The only faith in Buddhism is to practice and see if it is true. Now, there are a lot of middle-aged, disappointed Western Buddhists. So what? We might be one of them. So what? If we have some projected material idea of what enlightenment is, what it is to be Buddha, we're in trouble. And not only that, there's another problem that seems to appear. The faith aspect becomes a problem because we lose, Western Buddhists lose faith in their teachers. Why? Because their idea of what it's supposed to be didn't happen. And I'm going to be really horrible and non-PC, because there's also a racist element that arises thinking that because we have science, we have a particular kind of philosophy, we are actually smarter than these people who have been doing this for 2,600 years. There's a subtle and sometimes not so subtle racism that happens, and the view of the teacher, because it doesn't fit our little Protestant or Jewish or whatever idea of what we think Buddhist enlightenment should be, our materialistic outline of what Buddhism should be. That is a huge problem. And the other problem that happens goes along with what Ken has been describing. What Ken describes as boomeritis Buddhism, I think Trungpa Rinpoche described as spiritual materialism. It is trying to materialize everything for our relative benefit, thinking that we are going to be somebody. We want to be somebody, That's the thing. Even if that somebody, part of the promise is no there's no self, there's no mind. But we want to be that no self. That we want to materialize that no self, that no mind. We want to materialize the enlightenment. As Trungpa Rinpoche also pointed out, we want to be there at our own funeral, seeing how everyone, how great they think we are and how wonderful. Look, he lived such a wonderful life and an enlightened life. It doesn't work that way. It just does not work that way. Anytime we are involved in a spiritual pursuit and it feels too good, there's something wrong. In Buddhism, there's something called Mahasukha. Mahasukha is the great bliss. But the great bliss isn't our little materialistic idea. It's the great one. It's not our little satisfaction. It's something much larger. So the basic view is if we fall prey to our own disappointments about our projection, we become nihilists. If we believe ourselves in ourselves too much, we become eternalists. We either get caught in fear or we get caught in hope. The Buddhist path is about the middle way between hope and fear, between nihilism and eternalism. We can have a respect for the material. There's no problem as a Buddhist having respect for the material world, spoon bending or otherwise. Doesn't make any difference of any kind. There is respect for the material world. But it is not necessary to materialize everything. Once we materialize, we create huge problems for ourselves and for others. The path of Buddhism doesn't make any promise that it's going to take care of everything. You can do botany, as Ken points out, you can do botany, you can be a good carpenter. And of course you can put your vipassana and your shamatha, your mindfulness, to that. But it's not, quote unquote, a part of the Buddhist path. It's how your mind relates to things. So there's a relationship between the practice of Buddhism and how one lives one's life. Being a Buddhist makes us curious. Being curious, we can look at many things. The wonderful thing about Buddhist practice is it makes the many things stand out. The colors are brighter. The sounds are more brilliant. One is able to see clearly. So there's a relationship between spiritual practice of Buddhism and the world, of course. But there's no reason to try to confuse them as the same thing. It's not that one has to live two lives. And just as one example, though Ken doesn't like when I give this example, but I don't care what he likes or doesn't like at this point, because he put me up here, so he's going to have to hear it again.
Payback. Payback.
Payback time. In every culture where Buddhism has made its way, there was a social structure to accept it. In India, there was the whole Vedic background and relationships between family, society, and so on. In China, Japan, Korea, most of Asia, there was the Confucian system, which took care of the social aspects and the science and the government and all of those aspects of things. Buddhism comes to the West, and it ends up in this thing where in this country we barely have a culture. We barely have a social structure. It's as we know, it's how does that work?
It landed in L.A.
It landed in L.A. Exactly. It's a funny thing. So You can't blame Buddhism for that. You can't blame the Dharma for the fact that you're not enlightened. The Dharma is enlightened. It's not the Dharma's problem. So that's my little tirade. Thank you.